The corridor lights dimmed and brightened in a rhythm that suggested the station itself was breathing, or at least pretending to. He followed the pulsing indicators on his wrist console with the kind of faith normally reserved for malfunctioning elevators and weather forecasts. The console insisted the translation relay he had just recalibrated was stable. His head insisted he should be asleep. Somewhere between those two opinions, his feet made a decision without consulting either of them. The door slid open when it shouldn't have, or perhaps it should have, and the station was simply being polite about it. He took one step inside before the smell of unfamiliar air conditioning and the faint harmonic hum of personal field generators told him this was not a utility room. He froze, one foot suspended, as if gravity itself might ask him to justify the intrusion. Inside, the alien woman looked up from a floating lattice of symbols that collapsed into a neat sphere at a flick of her fingers. She did not scream, she did not reach for an alarm. She tilted her head and her long ears followed the motion a half-second later like thoughts arriving after emotions. They stared at each other in the soft glow of adaptive lighting. His brain ran through a checklist: apologize, retreat, pretend you are a hallucination. His mouth chose a different option. I'm pretty sure this is storage bay C, he said, her ears twitched. That depends, she replied, her voice filtered through a translator that added a faint musical echo, on what you believe storage bay C is for. He glanced behind him, as if the correct room might be hiding in shame. If it involves accidentally walking into someone else's private space, then yes, nailed it. She studied him with an intensity that made him aware of every microexpression his face might be leaking. The station's translator hesitated, then offered, "You appear lost or defective." "Both," he said quickly. "Definitely both. I was recalibrating relays for the interspecies comm grid, and the corridor labels started doing that thing where they rearrange themselves when you're tired. Which is unfair, corridors should not be allowed to move." "That is a common complaint," she said, one ear angled forward, the other back. "Among humans and among my people. And among maintenance drones, though they complain mostly by colliding with walls." A small laugh escaped him before he could stop it. The tension loosened, not enough to disappear, but enough to stop biting. He took a cautious step further inside, hands raised in a universal gesture of "I mean no harm and also I am very embarrassed." "I can leave," he said. "Immediately, rapidly, I can even forget this happened if that's an option. I'm very good at forgetting things, names, passwords, entire meals." "You are already forgetting," she said. "You have not asked my name." "That was me being polite," he said, or terrified, hard to tell. She stood and the gravity field in the room adjusted subtly, smoothing the movement. He noticed the way her ears shifted again, reacting to something he couldn't hear, or perhaps something she felt. The room's walls shimmered faintly, responding to their proximity, colors drifting toward warmer tones as if encouraged by the interaction. "You may stay for a moment," she said, "if only to satisfy my curiosity." "About why you did not run," she said. "Most humans do, or they apologize 17 times and then run." "I can still do the apologies," he offered. "I've been saving them." Her mouth curved in a way that the translator labeled as amusement after a brief delay. "Later," she said. "Tell me instead why your device keeps arguing with you." He looked down. His wrist console had begun flashing a passive-aggressive amber. "Oh, that, it thinks I should be off shift. It's very invested in my well-being more than I am." The console chimed, projecting text into the air between them. "Rest is advised. Also, you are in an unauthorized location." "Yes, thank you," he muttered. "I'm aware." She leaned closer, studying the projection. Her ears dipped, then rose. "Your machine scolds you." "It cares," he said defensively, "in its own way. Like a disappointed parent who also controls the locks." Her laughter this time was unmistakable, a sound that made the room's ambient field ripple. "Our machines do not scold," she said. "They observe, they judge silently." "That sounds worse," he said. "At least mine tells me when it's unhappy." The translator hesitated again, then smoothed the words between them, learning, adapting. Outside, the station shifted its orbit by a fraction of a degree, unnoticed by anyone but the navigational AI. Inside, two worlds adjusted more clumsily. "I am called," she paused, ears flicking as if testing the air. The human approximation would be Lyra. He stopped himself, suddenly aware of the weight of the moment. "I'm Evan." And I swear this was an accident. I believe you, Lyra said. Mistakes have a particular texture, this one is soft. That might be the nicest thing anyone has said about my mistakes, Evan said. They stood there, the door still open behind him, the corridor lights breathing patiently. Neither of them moved to close it. Neither of them called for help. Somewhere in the station's vast memory, a log entry waited to be written, unaware that it was about to become something else entirely. The door slid shut on its own, not with urgency but with a quiet certainty that suggested the station had made a decision. Evan noticed it only after the soft seal sound registered a second too late in his mind. Well, he said, gesturing vaguely behind him, now it looks intentional. Lyra followed his gesture, her ears lifting, then angling outward. The station prefers clarity, she said. It dislikes open variables. That makes two of us, Evan replied. I've been trying to close variables all week, they keep multiplying. He shifted his weight, suddenly aware that staying required a different kind of permission than entering. His wrist console flickered again, this time projecting a gentle reminder shaped suspiciously like judgment. Unscheduled social interaction detected. Productivity may be affected. Traitor, Evan muttered. Lyra leaned closer to read the projection, her ears tilted toward it, curious. It fears inefficiency. It worships it, he said. Efficiency is the closest thing we have to a religion. She considered that, then nodded slowly. We worship continuity, which may be worse. The adaptive lighting shifted again, responding to the cadence of their voices, and Evan became aware that the room itself was listening, not passively but attentively, cataloging tone, proximity, pauses. He resisted the urge to apologize to the walls. You may sit, Lyra said, gesturing toward a surface that rearranged itself into something chair-adjacent. If you remain standing, my people would assume you are preparing to flee or to fight. Both create unnecessary reports. I hate paperwork, Evan said immediately, lowering himself onto the seat. Emotionally, spiritually. Her mouth curved again, quicker this time. She settled opposite him, folding her legs in a way that suggested comfort rather than caution. Her ears continued to move, subtle, expressive, betraying reactions before her words did. You work with translation systems, she said. Yet you seem surprised by misunderstanding. I've found they're directly correlated, Evan replied. The more you know about communication, the more you notice how bad everyone is at it, including yourself. The translator between them pulsed, recalibrating. Evan watched the tiny delay between her speech and the rendered words shrink almost imperceptibly. It was learning them as a pair now, not as isolated data points. That realization made something warm and strange settle in his chest. I study how meaning changes when it crosses species boundaries, Lyra said. Humor is the most unstable element. That checks out, Evan said. We can barely translate it between humans. Your jokes, she continued, ears twitching, often involve self-deprecation. Is this a ritual apology? Sometimes, he said, sometimes it's just preemptive damage control. If I make fun of myself first, no one else has to work as hard. That is efficient, she said thoughtfully. See, he pointed at her, you're already getting us. Her ears lifted higher at that, then flattened slightly as if embarrassed by their enthusiasm. You assume understanding is mutual, she said. That is a very human error. Give it time, he said. I'm excellent at making errors. A soft chime rippled through the room, not loud enough to be an alarm but present enough to be noticed. Lyra's gaze unfocused for a fraction of a second as she received a private feed. Station cycle shift in 12 units, she said. Common areas will increase activity. So this is the quiet part, Evan said. That explains the existential dread. It's much louder when people are around. She regarded him carefully. You are comfortable speaking this way with me. He shrugged. You didn't kick me out. That feels like consent, to be mildly honest. My people do not often invite honesty, she said. It tends to linger. I promise to clean up after myself, he said, metaphorically. The room's gravity shifted subtly as the station compensated for an external correction. Evan felt it as a gentle pressure change, like the universe clearing its throat. So, he said, glancing around, what were you working on before I committed accidental diplomacy? Lyra gestured and the floating lattice reassembled, symbols flowing into place. Emotive resonance mapping, she said, teaching artificial systems to recognize meaning not only in words but in what is withheld. That sounds terrifying, Evan said, and incredibly useful. Yes, she said, and frequently wrong. The systems believe silence always indicates fear or hostility. Sometimes it's just thinking, Evan said, or panic. Or trying to remember if you left the stove on. Her ears angled forward sharply. Stoves are dangerous. Only when forgotten, he said, which is often. She laughed again, softer this time, and the lattice flickered, its pattern shifting in response to the sound. Evan realized the system was logging her emotional state and correlating it with his speech. He felt oddly proud. My colleagues would find this interaction inefficient, she said. Yet I find it clarifying. Same, Evan said. Usually my day is a series of problems pretending to be solvable. This feels like a problem that doesn't mind existing. Her eyes held his, steady, curious. Her ears lowered slightly, a gesture the translator hesitated over before labeling as trust. Outside the room, the station continued its endless calculations, unaware that two of its inhabitants were quietly redefining a category. Inside, humor filled the gaps where fear might have settled, and curiosity stretched cautiously toward something neither of them had planned. Evan's console chimed again, but this time he ignored it. For once, the variable felt worth leaving open. The station announced the memory audit with the same calm tone it used for orbital adjustments and nutrient cycle reminders, which felt rude under the circumstances. Evan noticed because his wrist console vibrated in a pattern he had never felt before, a sort of apologetic tremor. Unlogged interaction detected. Temporal continuity check initiated. Minor memory realignment scheduled. He stared at the projection, then looked up at Lyra. That sounds bad. Her ears dropped sharply, then rose again as if correcting themselves. It is inconvenient, she said. The station performs these audits to remove anomalies. Conversations without context, emotional residues. Emotional residues, Evan echoed, that feels targeted. She exhaled slowly. It will remove this interaction from low-priority memory threads for efficiency. That's not efficient, Evan said, that's rude. The room seemed to dim slightly, responding to the shift in tone. Lyra stood, pacing once, her steps measured, ears twitching rapidly as she thought. Evan realized he had begun reading them without the translator's help, or at least believing he was. How long? He asked. 16 units, she said. After that, this moment becomes blurry. Like forgetting why you walked into a room, Evan said. Yes, she said softly, but shared. He laughed, a short, incredulous sound. I finally walk into the wrong room and it turns out to be the right one, and now the universe wants to delete it. The universe rarely consults individuals, Lyra said. It prefers patterns. Well, I hate patterns, Evan said. They always assume too much about me. His console chimed again, more insistent. We can't just let it erase this, he said. There has to be a workaround. I helped build half the translation safeguards on this station. There's always a loophole. Her ears angled toward him, cautious hope flickering. Memory audits can be deferred if an interaction is reclassified. As what? Evan asked. Accidental hallway comedy. As first contact, she said. He blinked. That seems dramatic. For my people, she said, first contact is not limited to species. It can apply to individuals. It carries protections. Evan grinned. Leave it to bureaucracy to save the day. They moved together toward the console embedded in the wall, their motions awkward but synchronized, like dancers who had only just agreed on the music. Lyra's fingers moved with practiced precision, accessing station protocols that Evan had only ever seen from the outside. He overlaid his own permissions, muttering apologies to systems he had helped design. This is going to flag every administrator within 3 decks, Evan said. Good, Lyra replied. Witnesses strengthen reality. The station resisted, of course. It always did. Queries bloomed across the interface, demanding justification, context, probability assessments. Evan answered some with technical jargon and others with blunt honesty. Unexpected cohabitation event, probability of error high. Yes, Evan typed. That's the point. Lyra added a line in her own script, symbols flowing like music. The translator hesitated, then rendered it. Error reclassified as intent. The system paused. Evan held his breath. The room's gravity wavered just a touch. First contact parameters met, memory preservation authorized. The vibration in Evan's wrist ceased. The lights warmed again. The station reluctantly accepted the change. Lyra stepped back, her ears slowly lifting, relief written across her features. Evan realized his own shoulders had dropped an inch. So, he said, breaking the silence, we're officially a category now. Yes, she said, an unlikely one. I specialize in unlikely, he said. My career is built on it. She laughed, the sound fuller than before, and for a moment the station felt less vast, less indifferent. Later, after the audit window closed, after the tension faded into something almost peaceful, they sat again, closer this time, not because the room required it, but because neither of them objected. Evan noticed how easily the quiet settled now, no longer heavy with uncertainty. I should have left, he said suddenly. Yes, Lyra agreed. I'm glad I didn't, he added, her ears tilted toward him. So am I. The station would continue, of course. Corridors would shift, systems would fail and be fixed, people would walk into the wrong rooms for the wrong reasons. But something in Evan had changed. He felt less like a man drifting through protocols and more like someone who had chosen a moment and claimed it. When he finally stood to go, the door opened without protest.